We'll talk about guns for people that can't spell gun. How's that? We'll start at that level.
That's
And I'm a public school graduate, so I have a hard time spelling three-letter words. So we always start with safety and the four rules. And if you know these four rules, if you abide by them always, you will never, ever accidentally shoot someone. Never. It just will not happen. Just four rules. And that's the great thing. A man named Jeff Cooper developed these four rules years ago, because you would go to a gun range and you'd be handed a list of 35 things that you had to follow, and no one could follow everything and stay safe, and they were shooting each other, because it's kind of like a ladder. They don't make three feet ladders anymore, because there's not enough room on a 3-foot ladder for all of the safety warnings that they can put on them. That's a joke, but it's kind of like that. You never read, if you're handed 35 things to do, you won't do all of them, or 35 things to watch out for. So he narrowed it down to 4 gun rules, and that's what we always want to go over before we shoot with anyone, at our house at least. I mean, we can control it here, and usually people are glad that they've gone over them. So, and you've already done a little bit of homework. So the first rule is all guns are always loaded. All guns are always loaded. That's a great rule, and if that's really so important, because if you approach all guns and assume they're loaded, you will have a far better chance of never causing problems with that gun that you don't intend to cause. It's okay to cause problems if you need to, but if you don't want to, you don't want any problems. So there are some people that rewrote this rule, and they say treat all guns as though they're loaded, and that's a problem. That takes you one step away from it. And I would like for you to teach your girls about this, and your family, and go through rules and make your guns. Don't ever child-proof your guns by locking them and doing all that stuff. You want to gun-proof your children. You want your children to have a healthy respect and fear of guns and know how to use them. Bill Clinton, you might remember him. He had a Surgeon General named Jocelyn Elders. You might remember her. How could you forget her? She said one thing that we so agree with. Only one thing in her whole life has she ever said that we agree with. She one time said, "Don't buy your kids toy guns. It's dangerous." And we thought, well, that's right. You should buy your children real guns. So we started following that. And the thing about that is, we see kids in our neighborhood with toy guns, and they're always pointing them at each other and violating all 4 rules from when they're early on, and the parents know, well, it's a toy gun, so it's okay. That's a horrible pattern to instill in their lives. You don't assume that. You never want someone to assume it's a toy. Never. So we think teaching kids how to use guns properly is a very good thing. And you might be taken out of the fight someday, and one of your girls has to pick up that weapon and defend. It's possible. It's horrible to talk about, but we live in a very bad world that's getting worse, not better. So, all guns are always loaded. Every gun in our house is loaded. Well, it is because all guns are always loaded. But, have you ever noticed that accidental shootings never happen with an unloaded gun? I mean, with a loaded gun. They always say when on the radio, "Oh, I thought that gun wasn't loaded." What do you mean? It was supposed to be an unloaded gun. Well, you knucklehead, if you just knew the first rule of guns, it was a loaded gun. So we make sure every gun in our house is loaded, so we never have accidents. No one will ever say, "Well, I thought that gun was unloaded." They'll always know they are, Now, let's talk about that rule a little bit more. If I'm getting ready to clean my gun, that's a trick question, and I empty it out, and a lot of times we'll check it, like on your rifle, you'll do the lever action several times, make sure it's all ejected, you look in there, and then you take it to your cleaning table, and you might want to do it again once or twice. It's just a good habit to overdo. You don't want it to be a disabling paranoia, but you just want to make sure it's really unloaded. Now, when you have that gun in your possession, you've racked that lever several times, take it and you carry it to your gun table and you check it again, and you need to clean that gun. You never want to clean a loaded gun. But my question is that gun loaded? Well, that's hard to answer right now, because I said all guns are always loaded. But if the gun has been in your possession and you have unloaded it and you've checked it and you've double checked it, well, obviously you need to be able to clean the gun. You need to be able to work on it or look through it and do things with it. So the way this rule is implemented in real life is obviously you can unload your gun and you can work on it and all of that. But if you get up for 1 minute and go back to that gun, you need to check it again because you need to assume that gun is loaded, okay? But if you've manipulated it and you're cleaning it and you take it apart and you put it together, although you won't really be taking that apart, but a handgun you would, you need to be able to work on it without that paranoia. But if you put it on your nightstand, like as we do, a nightstand by the bed, of course, I've started putting it on the stand that's about 3 feet from the bed because I want to be, if I need that gun, and this is just a little extra thing, I want to have walked to it and at least woken up enough to kind of get my bearing before I grab it. I don't want it right at my pillow. Does that make sense? I don't think I would do anything different if it were next to my bed. I used to keep it right there, but I just think it's better to have to go about 3 feet to get to it at night, in the middle of the night. Just, you want it close, but that's just something. Now, every morning before I put my gun on, and I pretty much wear it always. If we go anywhere, I've got the gun on. We went to bed, it's just Janie and I. We have an alarm system. The dogs, us, we go to bed. I put the gun there. In the morning, before I put it in my holster, I'll pick up the gun and I will check to make sure it's loaded. Okay? I know Janie didn't unload it. I know she didn't. If you're carrying a gun for protection, if it's unloaded, in reality, that's just as dangerous as if I thought it was unloaded and it was loaded, because if I have to use it, I want to know there's a bullet in there. Does that make sense? So I check it, even though I know I'm the one that put it on that nightstand. I check it before I put it in my holster because I want to make sure my gun is loaded and that nothing happened. If it's been out of my possession, it's important to check. Now, anytime someone hands you a weapon, a lot of times they'll be nice and show you it's unloaded and they'll hand it to you, and the first thing you should do is check to see if it's loaded. It's not rude. It's not considered rude in the gun industry. It's considered, they will if they know what they're doing, they'll respect you far more if you do that. Okay? The first time anyone ever hands you a gun, whether it's yours or someone else's, check to make sure it's loaded or unloaded. But you want to know the status right then, even if you just saw him do it. So that's kind of, all of that kind of is good to keep in mind. So you'll never again look at a gun in your house and say, I wonder if that's loaded or not. You just, yeah, it's loaded. I need to know it's loaded. Your girls need to know that's a loaded gun. Is it always loaded? In reality, not always, but that's your assumption. Any questions? Am I missing anything so far? Okay, rule number 2. Never let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. Okay, now the muzzle is the end of the gun, the barrel end. Now I have, this is Janie's gun actually, and I've unloaded it. I took the magazine out, and you can tell by seeing through it that there is no way there could be a round in this gun. Okay, all guns are always loaded, but I can't manipulate it here in the house if I don't completely unload it first. So everyone understands. Are you okay with that? And really, this is the proper thing to do if you're going to mess with the gun. Show everyone in the room it's unloaded. That's good to do. I could even pass it around, but I won't do that. But anyway, so I'm going to close this up. This is the muzzle end here, of course. I'm not trying to talk down to you, but it's the end of the barrel, the muzzle. And never let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. So right now, I'm really not wanting to destroy this, but I really don't want to destroy anything in your direction because it could be used. So we always want to keep the muzzle in a safe direction. Well, that makes sense. So if I assume the gun's loaded, which I do, and I always keep the muzzle in a safe direction, I can never accidentally shoot someone. So just by those 2 rules alone, I'm not going to shoot anyone on accident. And we're going to talk about accidental shooting some more, but I always, when I'm manipulating this gun, if I were to whether it's loaded or not, I want the habit to always be in me that if I'm going to bring it over here, I'm going to make sure. I can walk through this, no problem. I can keep it safe, but I'm never going to cover you all with the muzzle. It's just not something that I ever want to do, even though I know it's not really loaded, but I'm never going to walk around like that.
It's a good habit.
It's a habit you always want. Now, in the movies, they always show how to handle guns wrongly, okay? Always. And I think that's intentional. I think Hollywood's evil, and I think they just want gun accidents all over the place so that can confiscate our guns. I've got all these theories that probably aren't true, but anyway, don't learn anything by Hollywood movies except a few that I'm going to tell you about later, okay? But you never hold the gun like this unless you think someone's upstairs and you are like there's a balcony or something and you're trying to cover it. But in general, you want it to be pointed downward at all times in general. Because in moving it up, what you've just done is covered a whole range of things that really didn't need to be shot, probably. So it's just better to keep your gun down and not do what Hollywood does. And that's true with your rifle also. There are two ways to carry a rifle. I noticed that you have a 2-point sling, which is good. And you can carry it with the barrel down, which is called African style, or the barrel pointing up, which is American style. And it's actually a little safer to carry it barrel down. So if you sling it over your shoulder, keep the barrel down. It also looks less, there's something about that. Other people don't seem threatened by that for some reason. If you think about it, I don't know why, but the barrel down it doesn't seem as threatening. And it actually, you can bring it into action faster with the barrel down.
Sure.
Otherwise, you kind of have to do this, but this way you just pull it up and pull.
Yeah.
So anyway, but never let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to destroy. Okay. Accidental shootings. I'm never going to use that word again because there is no such thing. There's only negligence, okay? If I hand you a gun that's mine and you shoot someone with it, that's your gun. Well, I should say that's your bullet. Your bullet did it. I mean, no court in the world. Well, nowadays they might get me too for handing you the gun, of course, but you're the one responsible for the shooting of every bullet that you are responsible for. If you shoot someone that you didn't mean to, that's negligence, not accidental. Especially now that you know the rules. To whom much is given, much is expected. I mean, so you actually have a higher calling now to be even safer with the weapon than you did before you walked in here because you were ignorant about them. I don't mean that to belittle you, but you didn't know the rules. So it's incumbent upon you to know. The nice thing about guns is, unlike a bow and arrow or something, you know exactly where this bullet's going to go. It's going to go that way. Okay, it's not going to curve. It's not going to do anything else. It's going to go straight out of this barrel. You have full control. I am in no danger right now from this gun. No lethal danger. I mean, I guess the casing could have hit me or something, but I'm in no lethal danger. So guns are really simple. They really are point and shoot, just easier than any camera you've ever owned. They're just point and shoot. That's literally really all it is. And so you are responsible for every bullet that comes out of a gun in your hands. So it's always negligence that causes problems, not accidents from this point forward. I guess if a gun breaks and goes off somehow, which never happens in spite of what everyone says, but that you could call that an accidental shooting. But if you're obeying the 4 rules, your muzzle's always going to be in a safe direction. So what if it goes off? And I used to practice in front of the TV when Janie wasn't home. Practice drawing my gun, unloaded, but I practiced drawing it. Now I thought I shouldn't point this muzzle at anything I'm not willing to destroy. Well, how bad is it to destroy a television? That's probably not that bad. It's probably something we should do, and we shouldn't be buying a new one. But anyway, so you're responsible for that weapon and for where it goes. Okay, anything else that you can think of on that rule? Do you have any questions? I know I'm beating a dead horse. Okay, rule number 3 is called the golden rule. All the rules are basically equivalent in hierarchy, but this really, if everyone just did this rule, pretty much there would never be negligence with guns. Always keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target and you're ready to shoot. Keep your finger off the trigger until your sights are on target, until you're ready to shoot. So in every TV show you'll ever see, their fingers on the trigger, and we've conditioned ourselves to just get that finger off the trigger. We just cringe when that happens, But everyone does it, and everyone we know, it seems like, will go to church. We used to go to a great church. Everyone had gun permits, and everyone homeschooled, and anyway, but it was a home church. But even then, they
didn't follow the rules.
No, but they weren't trained as we are, and I don't mean we're above them or better than them or anything like that, but we would always kind of have a little gun session first. The men would, we'd always get together and show our latest toy or something, and I've stopped doing that because they'd pull out their new gun and they'd say "see," and they'd have their finger on the trigger.
Yeah.
It's like, get your finger off that.
And you'd say, take your finger off the trigger,
take it
and
off.
don't point that
Don't
at
point
me,
that at
and
me.
then say, well, it's not loaded.
It'd say it's not loaded, and then say all guns are always loaded.
You violate all four of them?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
In 30 seconds?
Yeah. I mean, they always say, well, it's not loaded. Another good comeback would be, well, mine is, and you better not put that finger on your trigger and point it at me again, because mine is loaded. So I kind of want to do the following. I should have asked you about this, but this is really effective, okay? That's probably the first one you'll break, is your finger on the trigger. It's just a natural thing. That's the nice thing about holsters, is a holster is a safety device. It's not for holding, it's for safety. You can't put your finger in the trigger when it's holstered. When you have a proper holster, which all of them should not allow that. They make some special tactical holsters that do allow that, but that's kind of silly. So your holster is a safety way. When you pull a gun out of it, your finger shouldn't go to the trigger. It should stay pointing straight, pointing at where the barrel is until your sights are on target. Then you go to the trigger. So, and you're probably wondering how I can shoot. I'll show you later how I can do that. But so outside, I would like your permission, if I see your finger on the trigger, to get onto you. And it might embarrass you. It did me several times whenever this happened to me, but that was good for me. I don't want to be embarrassed, because it really bugs me when I see a finger on the trigger, and I might say, get your finger off the trigger, I might tell you that, and it might just come out naturally, and I'm not trying to be rude, but if it bothers you, that's good. Okay, does that make sense?
Sure.
Because that's really the rule that you do not want to violate. Because technically, you can the muzzle can point at someone, and if nothing pulls the trigger, guns do not go off by themselves. They do not. So, that's the golden rule. That's what Gunsite, which is the best gun school in America, therefore the world. When they have their four rules posted at every range, and that's always in gold. That's the golden rule. Keep your finger off that trigger until you're ready to shoot. I'm a little slower. You can very quickly get your finger from straight into the trigger guard and pull the trigger. So it doesn't slow you down any in a situation. In a situation, whenever there's people walk into a restaurant and they hold you all up or something. I mean, they hold up the restaurant. That's a tense situation. And you may have to protect your family sometime. You may have to. I hope you never do. But if you're trained to keep that finger off the trigger, that doesn't slow you down. It helps you, because when you're tense and you go into a caveman-like mode of your fine motor skills slow down, or just you can't do little things. You can't manipulate small items when you're in a tense situation. And so you don't want your finger to be used to getting on that trigger, as it will be now when you've never been trained, because you're going to be hearing a noise or something, and you're going to shoot that gun maybe at someone else, or just innocently, or you're going to show you have a gun by shooting it long before you want the bad guy. You want a bad guy to know you have the gun only after they're hit. That's the best time for him to know that you have a gun, not ahead of time. So this rule could save your life, not just someone else's, by in a tense situation you don't accidentally pull that trigger, if that makes sense. So that's really such an important rule. The last rule is be sure of your target and beyond your target. So that seems like common sense, but don't all these seem like common sense? I mean, they really do. So if I'm going to shoot at a paper target, that's great, but I need to make sure what's behind that paper target is also okay to hit, right? Because paper's not going to stop my bullet, okay? Neither is a lot of things. A brick house will. This house isn't brick. Just about any bullet you shoot will, especially your gun, will go right through this house. Just go right through it. And so if I'm out there shooting and I'm shooting at a target pointing towards this house, I'm really violating terribly rule number 4 because I'm putting everyone in this house in danger. So beware of your target and beyond. If you have to shoot someone in a crowded situation, you've got a problem because I don't know what you do. I mean, I should say, you have to decide it in a split second in a situation that you don't have time to think it through. That what do you do to protect your family? If someone's about to really hurt you or someone you love, you've got to take him out. I mean, you got to take him down. You've got to do something, and you've got to shoot him probably. And you always want to shoot center of chest. Never shoot at the head or anything. You want the big mass right here. This is where you shoot a human at center of mass. And if someone's behind him, you might hit them too. You might. Bullet may go through that person. And you've got a responsibility. Now, if you're not there to shoot, you also have a responsibility to protect them, and you may not have the means to do that. So it's a problem. Owning a gun is a problem. I mean, it really is. You're always facing this. What you'll start doing if you do start concealed carry later on, you'll start thinking about these things a lot more. And when you go in a restaurant, you'll start looking around going, how would I do this? How would I do this? You'll even change where you sit sometimes. You might want to sit by the door more, or at least facing the door, because avoiding a fight's a lot better than winning a gunfight. And so if you can get out of there right as it's starting to happen, that's best. It really is. You don't have an obligation to save everyone in that restaurant. You have legal problems sometimes if you do. I mean, it's a bad world we live in. So owning a gun adds all sorts of responsibility, but we think it's worth it. So you might want to, in a crowded room, let's say someone is covering you all with a gun. If they do that to you, they've just threatened your life with deadly danger, okay? And you can kill him legally. I mean, if you've been covered with a gun, it doesn't matter if their back's to you, you shoot them. I mean, you've got to get rid of them because they're going to just do it again. And you never know what's going to happen next, but they have just threatened you with immediate lethal danger with actually just having a gun in your presence and holding it up. If he's never covered you yet, you better take him out because he's just threatened you with lethal danger. If he turns his back or something and there's people in front of him, one thing you might have to do is drop down on a knee and shoot up. And that way you won't hit the people on your side. You've got to think about that. How am I supposed to think about that? Well, I don't know, but it's a problem. It's always a problem. Now I'm pretty wild and dangerous and crazy, but most people who own guns are very calm people, not what Hollywood portrays them as, because they know I can end this if I have to. I'd rather not have to. And you'll find that you become more confident and calm even in dangerous situations or semi-dangerous. You're going to start being calmer than you might be now if you know how to handle the situation. It really makes for a better peace of mind, really. You don't want anything to happen, but you can stop it if you really have to. So, but you always, anytime you shoot, you've got to worry about where's that bullet going, because you own the bullet that you shoot. A couple of things. Let me get this gun up here that is unloaded. It's unloaded and I put the safety on, so the trigger won't pull. Now, I'm going to put the gun right here. Now, the gun's there. I'm here. Let me make sure I don't want anything to fall off. If I were to stand right here, have I violated any rule? Kind of a trick question. In a way. Because the muzzle's pointing at me. Guns are inanimate objects. They're just pieces of steel, and they don't go off by themselves, in spite of what liberals want to teach us. Okay? And literally, you're not violating that. You almost have to be, again, I don't want you to be unrealistically paranoid about this, because you could never have a gun in the house if you could never walk by, because you're always going to be somewhere where that thing's pointing if it's not on your person. If it's on your person, it's pointing at your foot, or it might be, or or if you bend down, it's pointing back. But I'm technically not violating the rules by doing that, because worrying about that would be way over the top. But up until that point, worrying about the muzzle. But if I have control of that weapon, then everything applies. All 4 rules apply. If I have control of that weapon and someone walks in front of me, he's not responsible for walking in front of my muzzle. I'm responsible for my muzzle pointing at him. Okay. So anyway, that's just kind of a little extra thing. Have I left out anything on the rules? Are you doing okay? Do you feel already a little bit more confident? You kind of do, don't you? Yeah, I think I feel a little bit better. So if you were to see a gun in the street, you probably shouldn't pick it up if it's not yours. But if you were to see a strange gun in your house that maybe Paul brought home, you could handle it. You'd know, I don't want to touch the trigger, and I don't want the muzzle to cover any of the girls or anything. But as long as I don't touch the trigger and I'm careful with the muzzle, it doesn't matter if you've ever seen that gun or know anything about it. You know it's loaded, even if it's not, and you know not to touch the trigger. You are completely 100% safe with that weapon. You don't have to fear. And we were that way. We knew we needed guns. We believed in the right to carry a gun. We think it's an inalienable right to defend ourselves. I don't think it's a Second Amendment right. I think it's a God-given right to defend our families and ourselves. Even if they'd never written the Constitution, we'd still have that right, in my opinion. So I call it more of a freedom. Well, you missed it. It was a Bichon. So it's a freedom right. And where was I going with that? That Bichon threw me out. Well, you're already a little more confident with weapons.
Because you were going to say picking up a gun.
Yeah. You'll never be as fearful about being negligent, I hope, after this. And that's good. You're more comfortable, even if you've never. So, okay. I want to talk about a couple of things. You're going to need to get this book, The Art of the Rifle. It's the best book on rifles and how to shoot them and all of that you'll ever get. And it's, I don't know how much it is. It's cheap. I mean, it's just a little tiny book. They never charge too much for it. It doesn't have price, but you know about Amazon.com? And you can get it on Amazon. eBay. Get it used. I mean, I don't think it's in paperback. It's by Jeff Cooper, the man who came up with the 4 rules, okay? But it's great for a rifle. It's great, great, great. So it's the Bible with a lowercase b for owning a rifle. It really is. And what to do with it. Now, a lot has improved with rifle handling since this came out. And there are other sources I'm going to turn you on to someday, but right now, this is what you need. So you need The Art of the Rifle, and it's a great book. Also, there are some, I don't know if you like movies or not too much, but just in case, if you ever see a movie directed by Michael Mann, you thought I was going to say Michael Moore, didn't you?
Yeah, I was going to
No.
wonder.
Is it Michael Mann? It's M-A-N-N. Michael Mann. I'm pretty sure it's Mike Mann. He did Heat, and he's done a lot of movies. But anyway, M-A-N-N is the director, and I think it's Michael Mann. Every gun in his movies is handled properly, unless it's by a bad guy. Every gun is drawn, is everything according to spec. And he was trained to keep your finger off the trigger. He never does anything sloppy, unless it's the bad guy. And, they'll have accidents and all that. And so you'll also see a lot of movies where someone will be in trouble and they'll be running for their life and they'll grab a gun. The gun never helps them. Hollywood never lets the gun solve the problem, ever, ever, ever. It always is kicked away or it's used on them or some idiotic thing. But Michael Mann is very realistic when it comes to guns. And they're usually crime movies. I guess the language is pretty bad. I don't know. You have Angel, whatever that is, that bleeps out the word Guardian, or you may not want your girls to see it. But anyway, you don't have to watch any of his movies, but if you ever do, you know that you can trust him. His gun handling is really good. And also, there's a movie called Shooter. Did you ever see Shooter? Oh, it is so good. So it's about this ex-military sniper guy, and he's accused of assassinating someone. He didn't do it, but it's really a good gun movie. It doesn't really teach you much about guns, but it's really a good gun movie. So be sure and get Shooter. It's a great story. It's so good. I'm sure it's R. It is because of language. Definitely. Strong graphic violence and some language. The language, I'm sure, is always in
You don't
there.
mind R for violence?
Yeah.
In particular because
Sure.
it's a violent world.
Yeah, and The Patriot and a lot of movies,
That's
violent.
a great movie.
Good, military movies.
Right.
Yeah. So, and it's because of violence, but there will be some
Language
language.
is going to be
And
bad.
so, but it's so good. The Shooter. Be sure and sometime get this. It's a great movie. Okay, now let me see. About your gun a little bit. You have what is called a 2-point sling, and they make a 3-point sling where it attaches in the middle. They make some tactical slings that are kind of, you'll see them on TV, you'll see the military have them, they drop their gun and the gun just falls right here. And they make all sorts of slings. And the best sling for you is a 2-point sling, what you have right here. Nothing fancier than this. I think that's okay. I would like it to be about a foot longer, have a little bit more room in here, but I think that's fine. I think you'll be okay with it. When you sling it on, let me just see, you sling it over your shoulder. Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. That's the way you walk with it. Whether it's loaded or not, that's just the way you should.
See, that'll be a change for me.
Yeah, it's always loaded. Do what?
That'll be a change for me because when I was a kid, I carried it with the muzzle on.
And that's okay, but it's not as good. Again,
I
that's
see the advantage, but it's going to be different.
Now, I do not see that is going to be quicker to pull it into play. You have to turn that thing upside down and over
yeah.
in order.
If you have to, you can just boom and shoot right there. When it's up here, it's been so long. Doesn't this even look meaner though? It looks like I'm a military guy getting ready to shoot. It's just something about it psychologically. This is a lot harder. How do you have to take it off.
Yeah.
You have to. I don't think there's any way to shoot this fast, even you all. I don't think you could do it. I think it takes more manipulation. I know it
So
does.
you were saying shooting it upside down if you had to?
Well, I'm saying it's faster to put into shooting position.
What if you wear it the
What
other
if you
way?
turn it around?
What if you have
in front?
the butt of the gun the front? Now you pick it up.
Either way.
Well, now would that be a faster way?
No,
to
you
say
can't pick it up, it's going to hit your shoulder.
Right.
Yeah, it's a problem. Plus, it's in your way.
I'm just trying to think how we did it in that class.
Well, we did it like this.
Just something else was different. We
Well,
went
it was
over
a
the
different
back,
type of
we
gun.
dropped it over.
Well, you're thinking of transitioning the pistol. So,
I never transitioned to pistol.
okay. That dropping over the back's just when you have to get the gun out of the way. This is for routine carry, for walking, whatever. If it's in front, it's going to be in your way. So you don't want it in front. Everything's a trade-off. With the muzzle up, and that's the American way of carry, there are probably advantages that I've forgotten to having it that way, but this seems to be the current
Seems
trend.
like the sling is even set because the wider area is at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. You mean it's better to have it up?
No, I'm saying that the sling is set up on the gun to have it
Yeah.
up because the wide area
Yeah.
on the sling.
That's meant to be on your
Is
shoulder
it-
where
yeah,
it's
that's meant to
wider.
be at your shoulder.
Or the sling's on backwards, I don't know.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Yeah.
But, yeah. Really, the really best sling is going to be a little bit longer than this, and it's all going to be this thin uniformly. And that way, nothing matters, and you can do whatever you have to do, and the sling itself never physically makes anything better. You want the tactic to be better, not the sling. You don't want to have to follow the sling. But there is a transition that you're shooting, and if you run out of, if your rifle jams, malfunctions, or you run out of ammo, you could, in a firefight, try to reload, but you're a caveman and you're not going to be able to reload, you're going to drop everything. There's not a magazine to load in this. You're going to do it one at a time. So the best thing to do is to transition to your pistol. Well, the best thing to do is get out of the way, run. Because a running target's very hard to hit. And if you ever get in a firefight, you get behind cover real fast. I mean, just leave. If you're in a restaurant, especially if you're by yourself, Paul or Sue, run out. It's very hard to hit you. It really is. Your life probably is better off trying that. You're going to find it's pretty hard to hit a stable target from just 25 yards off. It really is. And bad guys usually don't shoot that well. So, but you want to be able to transition to your pistol. And one of the fastest ways, I'm not sure I can do it with this gun. One of the fastest ways is just put it over your shoulder like this. Put it here, and then just let it drop. It won't hurt you, just let it drop, and then you pull your pistol out and continue to fight. That's a lot faster than reloading your rifle. Now, if you're not within pistol range, you need to run. Just get out of the way. Get behind cover. Concealment is anything that hides you. Cover is anything that hides you and protects you from bullet rounds. So cover is better than concealment. But if all you have is just a wall that can be shot through, you want to get behind that. There's something psychologically, people just don't shoot when they don't see someone as much.
Sure.
They'll still shoot probably, but something mentally they won't. So your first idea is to get, see, this isn't quite long enough to do this. It needs to be, I need about another foot to make this comfortable. It could end up on your neck and choke you a little bit. In a fight, you want all the odds in your favor. So you might want to get a little bit longer sling that's more uniform in width. This is what your dad gave you. If you want to keep it, great. I mean, it's just a hunting gun, and you hope you're never in a gunfight with it, but tactically, a little bit longer sling would be better. And it's kind of hard to get out of that sling. This caliber, it's a 30-30, and it shoots a 30 caliber bullet. And the nice thing about this is it goes through things. What they give our military these days doesn't go through things. It's called an AR-15. That's the gun that they shoot. It's one of those mean-looking guns that you see our guys in Iraq shoot all the time. And those bullets, they're slightly more than a 22. Slightly more. They're 223. So they're 3/1000ths of an inch larger than a 22, which is like nothing. Yeah, you plink with 22s. And that's what our military uses against people that shoot guns like this. Now, they shoot AK-47s, but the round is almost identical to what you have with a 30-30. So our enemy is shooting rounds at us, at our military, that go through brick, that go through cars. Our military shoots 22, and they would be offended at hearing that, but they couldn't argue too much against it, that bounces off glass on vehicles. They'll shoot at a vehicle coming at them, and their bullets can bounce off that glass easily. Whereas the 30-30 goes through glass. It doesn't bounce off anything. So you've got a very good high-powered weapon here. It's considered to be a very strong round. Unlike an AK-47, which is our rifle of choice, actually. Again, they're very similar, but an AK looks mean, this doesn't.
Yeah.
They're just as mean, but it looks mean. And so people, really, it's a great gun to have for your family. It's just great. There's a lot of reasons why this is a great gun. The drawback, there's no magazine. It's a lot slower to load. I don't have a magazine release on this gun. This is, it's my Colt 45, but I thought I had a mag release on this side.
But it's not the one you normally carry.
Well, I usually carry the silver one. I've been carrying this, but it was on, and the other one was in the shop. This is a magazine, not a clip. A clip's what you wear in your hair. This is a magazine, okay? And so, nope. Yeah, read it and weed. Whenever you put a magazine in, you always want to pull to make sure it's seated. A magazine's preloaded, so it would be faster. It's really the only drawback to this gun. If there were one perfect gun, we'd only have one gun. So every gun has drawbacks, okay? I could show you an AK and show you how this is better. But, well, I've already told you how this is better really just because of the furniture. It just looks better. And it's going to be legal a lot longer. But a magazine gun would be tactically a little bit more superior, tactically. That's the only thing. but you've got a very powerful gun. Another little drawback, not much, is it's going to kick a little bit. You're going to feel this when you shoot it, especially the first time. You're going to be surprised, and you're going to say, that gun is just too much for me. It's not. First time you shoot, you might think that. I'm getting ready to shut it and we'll go outside, but it's going to have some power, okay? If a gun were totally semi-automatic, meaning you didn't have to rack it to put it in, I'll get into that when we get out there, about ejecting rounds and everything. So, when you shoot a rifle, you don't want to bring your head down to the rifle. You want to bring the rifle up to your head, okay? That means that you really can't put it into your shoulder like this with the sights that you have, which you have fine sights. It's always best to know how to shoot with the sights that came with the gun, because if you have a scope, scopes break, batteries die, all that. You really want to be able to shoot with this. You might want to get a scope for this someday. They make very inexpensive scopes for 30-30s, and you want one that's higher than these sights, so that if the scope goes bad or breaks, you can still use your iron sights without having to remove the scope. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The only issue is that since it's top ejection instead of side ejection, I know they make scopes for that, but it was...
That's an issue. I didn't realize that. Yeah, that's an issue. So, yeah, of course it's a top eject. They'll make scopes. They make scopes that go out here.
Right, they do.
IER scopes. And they're actually a little bit better. Well, on this gun it's not as critical, but on a heavy recoil gun, if the scope's too close, it often will hit you in the head. So they make those extended relief scopes that go way down here that you can easily see, even though it's way down there. And we'll show it. The problem with me is I obviously can't show you how to shoot right, properly, because I don't have the same hardware you have. So I just have to do the best I can. But you want to cheek weld, and we'll do this outside in a minute, but you want your cheek to weld to the butt of the gun, and you want to practice always being in the same position. That's what I was doing in front of the TV recently, when Janie wasn't here, is with my AK rifle, I would just practice putting it up and just doing this from all sorts of positions. And my goal is to always be in the same place every time. Always be in the same place. And it takes practice. And then you start slowly. And the gun industry has a saying that says, slow is smooth, and smooth is fast. And you don't want to practice speed, you want to practice being smooth. Now, I'm not smooth with your gun, but you want to practice being smooth. You don't want herky-jerky and all this. You want to be smooth. And if you'll see someone shoot, and if they're real smooth, you're going to think they're a lot faster than they are. And they are actually faster than someone who's all jerky, wasting a lot of motion, getting to the same position. You want to practice slowly, being smooth, without any ammo, just in your home sometime, point it. Your home is a problem. You're going to be covering people. If you have a brick house, you really, okay, well...
I'll have to come out here.
Yeah, you can always come here. I'll give you a workaround on that in a minute, but you want to be smooth, not fast. And if you practice being smooth, you'll get fast, real fast, and you'll still be smooth. Okay? If you start to drop your gun when you're shooting, if you're out in the range and you start to drop it, I'm not going to do that. Here's what you do. You go, whoops, you just let it fall. You never go after it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because your finger might be on the trigger. Yeah. Or lots of problems. So if you start to drop it, great. The gun's probably not going to be broken if you drop it, especially on ground, on grass. It's not going to break. So don't ever go after a gun if you're dropping it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What is it that you do to get as little recoil in your shoulder as possible?
You can buy recoil pads.
I mean, is there a certain way to put it? I thought that they don't.
Yeah, it's different for everyone is the problem. If you bring the gun up to you instead of your head going down to the gun, then your shoulder is going to be different from my shoulder. I'm going to be able to have it a little bit lower than you. So.
Okay, is there anything like with the 911 that you brace your arm? Does that come into play here?
No, it really doesn't.
Okay.
It really doesn't.
I was telling Sue that I had asked my dad for a recoil pad when I was
Yeah.
14.
Okay. Yeah.
But he wouldn't give me one because he said you don't need one on a 30-30.
Yeah. You don't. He's right. Yeah. 12 gauge shotgun. You really don't. But you're going to think you do the first time you shoot it. So I'm just telling you, it's really not. But you're going to stand with your knees slightly bent. You're going to lean forward a little bit, and that's going to take care of everything. So I can do this with the gun being fairly low, and I think Paul will too. I think Sue, you're going to need it up a little bit higher, and that's going to make the recoil feel harder than it is.
Yeah.
You know, if you had total protection. So you might want to. Well, we'll see. You might want to get a recoil pad.
Just for her.
Her and your girls, if you teach them to shoot it. So, but it's almost teaching them they can't handle the recoil when they really can. But
Yeah.
so you'll just have to play with it some. Hot brass. When that brass ejects, it can go down your shirt. It can. I meant to tell you to wear tight shirts, like a t-shirt. You're probably
You have a coat
okay.
to put on, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
That might even be worse though, because it can get into a coat.
I brought
put
a
a
scarf
scarf
to
or
have-
something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I brought a
a scarf.
scarf.
Okay,
to cover
might be
all
better.
this.
Yeah. The reason
Hat. Did you bring a
they brought
hat?
hats. Yeah, the reason we wanted a build hat is that you have safety goggles on or safety glasses, and brass could technically go there,
Yeah.
but the bill of the hat pops it off, so
Yeah.
you're fine. Hot brass, except for the eyes, isn't a big problem, but it is for a second or two.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunately never had one go down because
I've been hit by it. I
You've
don't
been
think
hit
it
by
went
it.
down my clothes.
and if you're hit by it, you're really not burned by it. I mean, it's just hit and it goes off.
Yeah.
And you learn when you're on a range next to a bunch of people shooting, you're going to be hit by brass once in a while.
Yeah.
At first, it's kind of, but if it goes down your shirt, it didn't at Gunsite. The guy next to me, some brass went down his shirt, one brass. It will burn for about a second or two, and then it doesn't. But
Yeah.
if that happens, you really have to just stand there because you've got a loaded gun in your hand
Yeah.
with people around you, and you just have to tell yourself, I might be burned by brass someday, and I'm going to have a little scar-like place for a few weeks, and I think it goes away. I don't think it's any serious burn, but it, you know. So you've got to say which is worse, me fumbling my gun around other people or being burned by my brass. Being burned is probably not the worst thing,
Yeah.
but it might happen sometime. Probably won't happen today, but it might happen, so it's something to watch out for. I think we're all ready to shoot if you're comfortable with the safety talk. Right?
Yeah.
Shooting's almost anticlimactic after all this. It's not that big of a deal, but
It's fun.
it is fun. So I say let's get your coats on and whatever you need.
Bathroom's here.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you. Okay, I'll get that. You go to the bathroom. I'm just going to go to the car and get her stuff.
No problem. Just come right back on in. Okay?